All right. Hello, everyone. It's Steve with Aptera Owners Club. I'm joined by Rocco,
Rocco, yep.
Nick Rocco, who is the Director of Operation Systems at Aptera. Welcome, Nick.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Oh yeah. So tell us what that means. What does Director of Operation Systems mean?
Yeah, well, at Aptera, Director of Operations Systems, the operation systems we consider, the business, the enterprise tools, a lot of the software tools that we use to run day-to-day business and operations. And essentially, it's the part I've taken over is getting our engineering design to release process through our PLM system, which is a software tool, ERP, which is another software tool, and our MES system that connects these software tools with actual factory equipment on the floor. So mainly that's under my purview. And
So what is ELM and ERP, PLM, ERP, MES? What does all that mean?
yeah, so PLM is a product lifecycle management tool. So essentially, when you design something, you're always iterating on your design, and you want to keep change control over the engineering of it. So if you design a part and you build it, then you change that part and build another one. You have this change control of the designs, the revisions, the releases, and you build out your bill of material. So that's the product lifecycle management (PLM) side of things.
So it's
That
like it keeps track of the different versions of your product and
yeah, the
what goes
different
into it.
versions. Yeah, the different versions of all the detailed parts and how they feed the children part that feed the parent part, and control of all your top assemblies all the way down.
Okay. And then what is ERP and MES?
Yeah, so ERP is enterprise resource planning. It's kind of a catch-all for a lot of business process systems. Maybe your demand planning, your quality systems, your warehouse management systems, your financial systems, everything, how an organization runs, their software tools, their tracking is usually done in this larger software program called an ERP system. And everything feeds in and out of that. So the PLM feeds into the ERP system, and then the MES, which is a manufacturing execution system, ties to that central ERP system. And the manufacturing execution is executing what the ERP system is telling it to do. It drives demand based on your order. So if somebody places a reservation for an Aptera to their configuration, that then creates an order in our system, demand to the PLM's bill of material that we've synced with it. And then that drives in ERP all the demand planning, purchase orders to buy parts, work orders to make parts, and that's synchronized with the MES system, manufacturing execution system, that tells the equipment on the factory floor, hey, this part's coming, this configuration of this part's coming. And the data that you collect when you build that part gets fed back. So we have full traceability of the part that went in the vehicle, the serial number of it, and the work that was even done on it, and the operator who did it, all full traceability to the vehicle's VIN number.
Okay. So does everyone use these software systems? Like I imagine like large manufacturers all have to use these systems because it gets too cumbersome. Is there like small manufacturers? I imagine that like there's some small manufacturers that don't use these systems, but is
Yeah,
it
I
pretty
mean,
standard?
yeah, they're pretty standard. I mean, you usually start with the manual business processes when you're very small, and then all these tools really do is help you automate these manual processes so that you can control things at scale. And that's what we're trying to do, is prepare for the scale. It's not as complicated to build, one-offs, maybe a product that's the exact same configuration. If you only built one, you can kind of get your arms around it. But as you start scaling up the volume of what you're making and the complexities of them, and have different models and variants. You have all these people working on everything concurrently. You need systems to help you drive.
Okay. And so are you also in charge of like figuring out the assembly line and stuff? Or
It's all intertwined. We
uh
have a lot of people helping us out, right? We got engineers designing parts. We have manufacturing engineers helping design the layouts. We have process engineers, process mapping, and level loading the lines as well.
mhm.
Everything's done to a tack time, and we're trying to balance all these things, like based on how the engineers are designing the parts. Are they snapped together? Are they fastened together? Are they bonded together? These all take different times, and then you
I
set
see.
up your work cells to account for this time and line balance everything.
Uh-huh.
And when you do that, that's like that's the physical, hands-on side of things.
Hmm.
You use these tools, these software tools, to connect, and they'll call it a digital twin or a virtual factory. It's a representation of your factory in software in virtual space, so that you can collect data and run reports, and you can give demand and instructions to the floor. This is what our plan is for the day. The floor executes based on this analysis that you've level loaded the lines and everything,
Hmm.
and you feed data back into the system. This is what we achieved.
I
And
see.
then you can run reports on how you're doing. So
Right.
hey, are you making money or not?
So right now it's all virtual because you don't have an actual assembly line. And so you're trying to guesstimate how long like a certain part of the line is going to take to do, right?
Well, yeah. So we have people helping us from industry who have done a lot of these studies in the past.
Hmm.
Assembling vehicles is a known thing. So
Hmm.
it's more like we have a vehicle, we have a design. It's mature to the point where we can process map what it's going to take to you know put put wheels on, mount a box.
Hmm.
Run a cable. Like, we know what those times are based on studies that folks have who are helping us have this library of information. So
Okay.
we know and how to break up the assembly, material handling equipment, and how much workspace somebody needs. So we can figure out the square footage, the how to break things up, the number of operators we need based on the parts that we're designing. You don't actually have to build it to be able to plan for it.
I see. I see. So like what can you tell us what's happening at Aptera now? Because a lot of it is like we don't have the money to like order all the parts and like actually get the assembly line going yet. So is like what's happening now? Like, are we just waiting for the money? Are there things that you're doing um that to
I
get
mean, there's
ready for it?
definitely, yeah, there's tons of stuff obviously to do. And what's the money's for very capital and heavy equipment, right? I
Yeah.
mean, you need a significant amount of capital to acquire all the tooling, all the equipment, material handling, a lot of things that you need at scale.
Mhm.
But there's things you can do before you get to scale. You can do things very manual,
Uh-huh.
which is slow. And so there's just a lot of planning and preparing. Obviously, planning what to do when funding is raised and how to kick everything off. So a lot of it too, we're trying to time all this.
Mhm.
You got to kick everybody off at the same, or in the right order, so that everything lands essentially on your dock, finished product, all at the same time. So there's a ton of work to do, finishing details, designs, and finishing layouts, and getting quotes from vendors, and a lot of stuff, before actually pulling the trigger, when significant amounts of funding come in.
So is all that stuff still being worked on? Like we were kind of under the impression like the vendors had been found and the quotes have been done, the design is essentially finished, um, and we were just waiting for the money to buy all the capital and the material handling and the parts and get the orders from all the vendors to start the ball rolling. But that stuff is still happening right now?
I mean, stuff's always happening.
Uh,
The bill of material, the design, these things are um, always being that there is no like you design it and then you're just done and then production. Like even through
Mhm.
production, like you're always designing, updating, iterating. I mean, vehicles, they get updates every year.
Uh-huh.
There's a lot of concurrent engineering that's happening. So, right, there's plenty to do.
Okay,
It's not a hiatus of just waiting for funding.
I see. I see. Because does that mean that like let's say someone were to like write a check for like $100 million or something, and like you guys just had you had plenty of money, like we'd still have to wait for stuff to get done before the thing could get going?
These things happen, concurrently. That it's a very specific question to a lot of dynamics that are happening. Right, there's space that's needed, tools that are needed, material handling equipment that are needed. These things all take time to acquire
Uh,
and quotes, and so there's a lot of stuff that has to be timed when the funding comes in. But we can plan for this stuff, based on the designs that we have. We have quotes for. We know the material that we need. We know the material handling equipment. We know the capital equipment. We know the space we need. So we're able to work with everybody to plan all this out.
okay. So I know that, there's been a lot of videos lately about what CPC is doing, and they're providing the body panels and stuff. And it seems like they are going to have plenty of capacity to produce the body panels, but you guys are producing the solar panels in-house. Like, is the solar panel part going to be able to keep up with the other vendors? Like I'm assuming like Alafe is going to have plenty of um capacity to deliver the motors. I mean, it kind of sounds like you guys are their only customer at this point, because Lordstown is not doing so well, and neither is Lightyear. So those two have kind of fallen off. So, anyways,
Yeah.
like how like have you guys figured out your suppliers, and is the Aptera's own solar production line going to be able to keep up with the other suppliers?
Yeah, I mean, we're not constrained by any means. We are process mapping our lines to meet production rates based on a reservation backlog. We can expand the line as needed to fill, the most efficient way to produce vehicles. And so all the lines have to be balanced. You
Mhm.
can't have one line producing more of
Right.
something than another line. Like all the lines across all the assemblies and sub-assemblies at vendors or ourselves all have to be completely balanced.
Do you guys know like how many people are you expected to hire to run the line when it's going? Like, how many people are you going to need?
I don't have those numbers, but
Uh,
that's not my responsibility right now.
uh,
But we know how many people it takes for each work cell. We
uh,
process map the work cells, and then right. I mean, you have supervisors and line leads and
uh,
support personnel, and you can how many people does Aptera need?
yeah.
That can be a very big question of we need support people and HR people to hire those people.
Uh. So like roughly, can you give us like a rough estimate of like how many people you're going to need on the line? Like how many assembly stations are there? Are there like 20? I think like that one video you guys put out a while back had like 20, was it 27 like little stations? And I assume at least one person per station at the very least.
Yeah, every one of them is unique,
Uh,
and it's a trade off. Like you've got a product, and each product it might have two stations, it might have 10 stations. It's all tied to line balancing. If our takt time is too high because everything's in one station,
yeah.
it's got to move to the next. We have to split that station up
Uh-huh.
into
To
two.
run it in parallel
Yeah,
to get it going
but
faster.
yeah, essentially, like we want a 12-minute takt time. Everything's
Uh,
got to move in 12 minutes. If a station is taking 24 minutes, we have to split it in half.
yeah.
That way we can move at that takt time. So all the products go through their own process mapping for this and line balancing. And sort of what you end up with is the amount of capital equipment you need, the size facilities, the tools you need, because you're splitting things up to line balance to attack time.
Okay. Have you guys started buying any of this material handling stuff or assembly line stuff?
There is some. I don't have like a list of everything we've purchased, but we've procured what we can, what's critical. We have to focus our resources. We have limited resources, and that's where additional funding comes in is helpful, because then you're not using limited resources. You have all the resources you need to get all the capital equipment that you can.
Okay.
So we're more strategic right now.
Okay. Now, did you do this kind of stuff at like other companies previously? Or were you doing other things earlier in your career, like different kinds of stuff? Like what's your background?
Yeah, so I'm an engineer by trade, I guess. I went to school for mechatronics, doing automation and controls, designing, mostly in aerospace, product development, got into engineering management, program management, designing parts for rockets, unmanned aircraft, satellites. We've done commercial work, medical devices. Really, is the first automotive product, but fundamentally they're all pretty similar. I've worked at small companies, big companies, and mainly I was responsible for designing, developing engineered items through the whole product life cycle, build, test, verification, validation, transitioning to production, and then maintaining these products when they're fielded, sustainment. And I even got involved with smaller companies trying to implement ERP systems. So getting into the business side of it, because I had worked with so many different parts of the business, implementing ERP systems along the way. And then sort of here at Aptera, all that culminated in using those skills to help bring up our operation systems that were kind of a blank slate when I got here.
So I looked you up on LinkedIn, obviously, and I noticed that did you work on the Predator drone?
Yeah, so I worked at General Atomics for years actually, and was helping to make their engine. They use a 2-liter turbo diesel engine. So I was running the program that helped fix some, we had just some engine issues, and developing a new turbo diesel engine for unmanned aircraft.
Okay, so is your background in electrical engineering or mechanical engineering? Like what kind of engineering is it?
So it's mechanical, electrical, software combination. They call it mechatronics.
Okay.
Kind of a jack of all trades engineer.
Okay. All right. But now it sounds like you're doing more of like management and software type stuff, right? At Aptera.
Yeah, that's where I've sort of drifted in, because I think all this, the engineering side, it culminated, instead of being specific to a single discipline, I was across all these engineering disciplines. So then I was managing engineering teams and taking on engineering leadership roles. And then that transitioned to product management, program management, which transitioned to managing things through production and sustainment. So there's just sort of the amount of responsibility got bigger and bigger until it's, not, there's like two sides of Aptera. They're building the product, the vehicle, but you're also building a business as well, a company, an organization. Yeah. And sort of looking at that holistically, like how do we want to run our operations, our systems, and then the product kind of moves through this organization you built.
So how long have you been with Aptera, and why did you join them?
Yeah, I've been here, gosh, it's over 2 years now. So kind of one of the first few employees we had. And I mean, obviously, so I've actually known Chris for a few years. We actually play basketball together. And we used to talk about Aptera years ago, and hey, if anything ever happens, let me know. And just over time, I think during the pandemic, we lost touch because we couldn't play basketball.
Yeah.
And I was starting a aerospace division, a satellite aerospace division in San Diego. But the pandemic hit and it was really hard to get new business. And that satellite office was struggling. And, I saw Chris and Aptera were picking up. And so we kind of helped transition some people from my organization to Aptera, and then said, well, hey, if you need help, I would love to come help you guys. And that's when I started to join. I mean, I've always been fascinated with electric vehicles. I've built my own electric skateboards, and just working for an electric vehicle automotive company in San Diego, making this solar electric amazing concept. Like, where else would you want to work?
Very good. Okay, so I have a couple of questions that people from the channel wanted to ask you. And so
Okay.
go ahead and tell me, like, don't know, can't say, or, if you have the answer, we'd love to hear the answer. Do you know, so originally the Aptera was supposed to weigh, like, at the bottom end was supposed to weigh about 1,600 pounds. And then, of course, with the bigger battery, it's going to weigh more. Do you have any idea how much the launch edition is going to weigh?
No, sorry, I don't have that one.
Okay. Can you tell us what companies like PLM, MES, like whose software are you guys going with? Like what package?
Yeah, that's fine. So for PLM, we're a CATIA house for CAD, 3D design CAD, and we use Inovia for the PLM system, the product lifecycle management system. ERP, we're using NetSuite right now. That's been our ERP system that we've chosen so far. And then there's a small company called IntraRatio for our MES system. And that's served us pretty well in this small startup environment that we're in to get something up and running, with limited resources, short time frames, and need something functional. This has been just a perfect set of tools for us to start off with.
Now, IntraRatio, they're based out of San Diego too, right?
Yeah, they are.
Okay, all right.
So that's been extremely convenient, as well as it's so easy to work with them. They have, local teams, and we work pretty closely together.
Okay, and like their software is used by other companies as well, I would imagine.
Yeah, mostly I think they're mostly in the PCB world. So they do a lot of high volume transactions. Traceability is their specialty. So it's working really well for us and it's really nice out of the box solution that we were able to turn on right away, have full functionality of the whole MES system, and start integrations right off the bat with minimal effort. They've been just great to work with.
Okay. Someone wants to ask, how far into production are we, and what steps need to still be taken?
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely a loaded question.
Yeah.
Huge question. But I think, I mean, obviously, the capital, the funding is a huge gate to getting to the next level. Without that, you need capital to push this thing along.
Okay, so the next question kind of builds on like if you got the capital, how long would it take to get to production? Like if you just got it, if you got the capital you needed today.
Yeah, so I mean, unlimited resources, there's sort of the dream plan. Then there's like probably a more likely plan of, you get money in phases over time. Nobody just comes with a big giant check for everything on your doorstep with no conditions. So we have a variety of different plans. I mean, I don't have all those plans sort of laid out, but just so people kind of understand, there's definitely you're throttled by the funding, the rate of funding in which you get.
Okay, all right. But do you do you have a ballpark of like if someone were to write a big check, like $100 million check, like how long would it take?
Yeah, I can't answer that one for you. I'll
Okay,
have to let someone else answer that
got it,
one.
got it. Um, how much of the assembly is going to be done in Italy versus in Carlsbad? Like, are they
Um,
going to ship you guys like assembled shells, or are they going to ship you like individual panels and then assemble the panels here?
yeah, that's a good question. I think a lot of those things are still up for debate, right? Nothing's set in stone right now, and it'll probably just end up being what's most efficient, what's most effective.
Okay.
You know, it can be done at either site, right? We can do stuff here, we can do stuff there. A lot of it too is we have a global supply chain as well, so it's kind of where the parts are in the world and where they're coming from, so that you're not doing things like shipping stuff here to make a sub-assembly and then shipping that sub-assembly back
Mhm.
there to install, and then they ship that complete assembly back here.
Uh-huh.
Like we gotta kind of find all those the most efficient way to build these very efficient cars.
So then it sounds like the assembly line design is still kind of in flux.
A
If
lot
things
of
like
it,
that haven't been decided.
I think a lot of the lines are established and the process mapping is established,
Mhm.
but you know, location can be changed.
I see. I see. Um, and is the are the body panels going to be wrapped after the car is completely assembled, or are the parts individually going to be wrapped before assembly?
I don't know that I can answer that.
Okay.
Um, I mean, I'd love for it to just be wrapped at the end because that just makes my life easier. I don't have to keep track of part colors moving through the system and trying to bring all the colors together. But I couldn't say when the best time to do that is.
Okay. And so as time goes on, things can, I guess the design can still change while we're going. Since it's getting delayed a little bit while we're waiting for funding, do you know if there's a chance like things like heated yoke, heated seats that have kind of been put on the back burner, is is that more likely to show up in the launch edition?
I don't know. I guess I couldn't say.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, every one of those is probably case by case. Yeah, I couldn't answer that.
Uh-huh. Someone wanted to ask, assuming that about the software, how is Aptera balancing the right to repair versus like security, like software security?
Um, Good question. I could take a stab at it.
Uh-huh.
I mean, I would assume a lot of the software, like right to repair, you know, servicing the vehicle and be able to repair and do basic maintenance. But I don't know that we'll like open source everything of the whole vehicle, so everyone can just modify everything about the vehicle. Like there's probably some balance of um, a controlled system that we can, you know, update our software and maintain control, and the right to repair the thing that you purchase so that you can service it and fix it on your own. You don't need to like send it back to Aptera or whoever to do, you know, basic things.
Okay.
And
Um,
that's just taking a stab at that.
sure, of course. Yeah. We understand it's not exactly your area. I mean, a lot of these questions are probably things that are very specific to one engineering group, but like you're the one that's in front of me, and these are the questions that people have, so we're gonna give it a shot.
I'll try my best.
Yeah. Okay. So with the changes to the body, like remember the first honeycomb composite body when the Apter had their first iteration, they said it had the highest roof crush strength and you could put two elephants on it. Like, is that still the case?
Yeah, I definitely couldn't answer that one for you. How
Okay.
many elephants we can put on the roof? I don't
Okay.
know.
All right. Do you know how much power draw the auxiliary systems like the screens and the computers and the BMS, that kind of stuff draws on the Aptera?
No, we have a power budget for sure, but
Uh,
I definitely couldn't answer that one off the top of
okay.
my head.
Okay. Uh, how much of the assembly line is going to be like robots and automated versus like people doing it?
That's a good question. I think typically you start off with manual processes to dial things in, get down your process flow, and then you add automation as you go. That's sort of a nice way, safe way to do things. And the higher the volume, or the more delicate the work, or riskier the work, I mean, you would want to add automation. I couldn't say percentage wise, but there will be a mix of manual and automated things, processes, probably based on the complexity or dexterity needed versus repetitiveness. And if we're like moving battery cells back and forth and testing every one, like and taking images, like you want to automate that. But if we're just mounting 4 bolts or something that's in this weird tricky spot, like that may be a manual process.
Okay. And initially you're thinking probably more manual. The initial line will be more manual stuff, and then as you go, you may replace some things with more automation. Is what I'm hearing you say.
Yeah, most likely I would say you start out with whatever mix that you want to start out with, and then you add automation as you go. More things, you'll find things that you can add, automated inspection equipment, or automated handling, material handling, whatever task that comes up that clearly was repetitive and it would be great to automate this, are good candidates for adding more automation.
Now, Aptera is going to make their own battery packs. Is that correct? Like, loading the cells in and like spot welding each cell, like that stuff's going to be done in-house.
Yep.
Okay. And that'll be
so there's going to be a battery line,
and that'll be part of the same line. It won't be a separate place.
So think of final assembly as one line, even though if you've seen our layout, it's kind of a lab.
U. Yeah.
It's kind of a U. But if you had infinite space, you would want just one long final assembly line, and then you would have all these feeder lines feeding it wherever you did that operation. So wherever you install the battery pack, then branching off that, you would have this battery pack line, and then feeding that as the battery module line.
Yeah.
And all this material comes in, and you have these feeder lines feeding the main line, and that's in that infinite space. We, however, have a loop, or another supplier is your leg of that line. So wherever you put those legs, could be vendors, could be us, and how you package it, and if it's in multiple buildings. But the ideal is infinite space and one long line, and everything feeds those lines.
But the battery pack is definitely in-house. It's not a external supplier.
Yeah, no, we've been designing an in-house battery pack with our modules, while procuring cells from a cell manufacturer.
Right. Do you know if Aptera is going to have a 110-volt outlet?
I don't know.
Okay.
That's a good question.
Okay. So I read the SEC filing report, and it looks like Andromeda Interfaces, got basically, you guys kind of like annulled the marriage. And it says that you guys went and found another supplier of the UI. Is it Android Automotive?
I can't answer that one.
Can't say. Okay, got it. Nope. Let's see. Okay, now that we've already answered that. Okay, so where are you guys planning on storing the finished Aptera vehicles after it comes off the line?
I think ideally we want to deliver them.
Okay, so you would deliver them kind of as they come off the line.
Yeah, we have a backlog, we have demand. The idea is to build to that demand and deliver and ship them.
Okay, so this question is, other than funding, what are the biggest challenges currently that may delay large-scale production?
Other than funding? There's just, there's a lot of, unknown things that can happen, right? You're you're designing complex systems at large scale in new buildings, new process, new people, like there are new suppliers, like we're building new relationships. There's all kinds of things that can go wrong along the way. And I think, we have our arms around the challenges we know now. But right there's always going to be challenges. Maybe there's
But it's kind of
part
the
issues or
unpredictable things, or is there a predictable
there,
thing that's like always a challenge on these things?
I mean, I think, we have, there's all kinds of risk mitigation plans for things, and we have, a handle on it. And that's where we put these plans together on how much funding to raise. Is we kind of know what we need to do, and we need the capital to go do it.
Okay, all right. Are there other companies that Aptera is looking at to kind of follow their production system or, their practices?
Yeah, I mean, I think everybody, uses other vehicles to benchmark, other factories to benchmark. But ultimately, I think every company, every manufacturing company, like, runs their operations their own way that's unique to their product and their business. I think every one that we've benchmarked with does things a little differently. And so we shouldn't be afraid to do things a little differently to fit what we need, as opposed to just say, like, we got to be just like this organization. We just need to be us and the best at what we're trying to do.
Okay. And you said that you've talked to other people, like, know like how long certain things take, because building cars is not a new thing, it's a known thing. Is it Sandy Munro that's given you guys this information, or are you talking to other car manufacturers? Like, who are you guys going to get this information and this help from?
Yeah, I mean, Monroe's been a huge help. I mean, they obviously, support us, and we work together, and have a library, a wealth of information. So yeah, they help us quite a bit on leaning out our process mapping, everything.
Okay. All right. Now, are there things in your job that are like that have been more challenging than you expected, and are there things that are like are going better than you expected?
I guess probably more challenging than expected is, this, startup organizations are very interesting ecosystems, and, it's new people, new process, new buildings, like getting everybody to work together who have come from all these different organizations, and have all seen success, right? All these organizations work differently, and everybody's trying to bring their good ideas from where they came from, but then you end up in this kind of, hodgepodge of ideas, and from that you have to distill what's important to you and what you're trying to achieve, and have something clean and efficient come out of that, so you can take all the good things that people have seen, try and leave all the bad things, not create more bad things in your organization, streamline it. And that's definitely been more of a challenge than I was expecting.
Okay. And is
but going well is, it is pretty impressive, how much we've been able to get done. A lot of these the things we're doing aren't trivial. So just, really it's kind of both sides. It's hard to get everybody together to do stuff, but then it is pretty amazing when you can get all these new people together to work towards a common goal.
And you feel like, because I think one of the things impressive for me is, like, when you look at how much money, like, Lucid and Rivian and, Lordstown spent to, like, get to where they are, and how much money Aptera has spent to get to where they are, it's like order of magnitude difference. So, I mean, do you think that's mainly because the regulatory barriers for four-wheeled, automobiles is different than auto cycles, or why do you think Aptera has been so much more efficient in, capital utilization to get to where they are?
I don't know that. I mean, I can't speak for any other organization.
Right.
how they spent their money and what they spent it on. I only know what we've done for the money we've spent, and definitely impressed with the team, and especially the operations systems. Like, we've benchmarked other organizations and gotten quotes from consultants and contractors, and some people quote these large efforts, months, years, millions and millions of dollars, and we found ways to do it for much less than that. And so that's the path that we went down to get something working. I can't say why anyone else chose their own path, but this is what we're doing, and we're able to do it efficiently, and it served us well.
So what kind of things are you doing like day to day over the last like couple of months?
Yeah, I mean, so there's in a smaller organization, you wear lots of hats. So I'm getting involved, obviously, manufacturing systems, helping with our supply chain efforts, helping with engineering efforts, because that's my background as well. So you kind of get into a lot more things than whatever title you're given.
I see. Like I'm trying to figure out, like, I think people basically want to know, like, what is Aptera doing on a day-to-day basis at this point? Like, like, obviously you're saying that there's a lot of work to be done. Is it still like design work that's being done? Is it like, are we still engineering these systems in there? Are we just trying to find vendor quotes? Like what is happening day to day at Aptera?
Yeah, there's no simple answer for it, but I mean, all the things are happening. There's always concurrent engineering. There'll always be engineering through the life. As long as this product is being built and serviced and fielded, there'll always be engineering work. You'll always be doing manufacturing planning. These are concurrent things that happen. I don't know that you could just break it down simply into those things, like you start and stop, and move to these other things. Like these are iterative process that happen throughout the life cycle of the product.
Okay. So like the supply chain people are like still looking for alternate suppliers, or like you guys want like supplier redundancy? Is that what's going on? And you're like running the MES systems and doing the virtual assembly lines and just tweaking those?
Yeah, I'm trying to make sure, right, everything's set up so when the wave of parts start hitting the dock, that we can handle it. And right, supply chain trying to make sure that everything's all the vendors and supply chains are set up so that parts can hit the dock.
Have we bought any parts yet, or we're gonna buy like material handling and assembly line stuff before we buy parts?
But those things, everything kind of overlap. Everything's got different lead times, and some, I don't know, really sophisticated automated equipment could have a really long lead time, and some part might have a really short lead time. So you would kick off longer lead time things before shorter lead time things. Yeah, no simple answer. Sorry.
Okay. All right. Well, I think that's all the questions we have for you, Nick. I really appreciate you taking time out of your evening to talk to us and kind of tell us about what you do and what's going on at Aptera.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, thanks for having me on. I've watched a bunch of episodes, and it's funny to watch somebody who's watching us. And
yeah. You're like, that guy's totally got that wrong, or that guy's, oh, that's actually a pretty decent read on it.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. Maybe there's a lot of guesses on like, why are they doing that, or what are they doing, and maybe there's you think more into it than we do, or we thought more into it than you think into it. It's funny to hear the views of somebody else.
Yeah,
observing what we're doing.
Yeah, yep. It's a fun hobby. All right. Well, thanks again, Nick, and have a good night.
Yeah, thanks, Steve.